All right, everyone. What you're looking at here is an actual video from a sample that I put under a microscope a few days back. I gave a class on the soil food web Tuesday, 23rd of April in Greenwood. And this was the day before, as I was getting my samples ready for things that we were going to do in the class, which included looking under the microscope at a couple of larger creatures, which would be in the class of arthropods, things that you can see but that are very, very tiny and hard to see. And then we looked for bacteria in a sample. And the sample that I used was compost from Castaway Compost up in Fishers, Indiana. Keith Odell runs that company, and he does a really great job. And if you're ever looking for worms, if you need red wiggler worms to make compost with, then see Keith. And I like to take worms to my class. I take earthworms so people can see what's going on in the soil, or what kind of earthworms they should have in a garden soil, but to differentiate them from the kind that you use for compost. And I knew it'd be a great sample. So look here. I mean, you can see some really cool stuff floating around. And this was right after I made this sample and put it under the microscope. When you see the water moving around like that, what you're looking at is a very, very small film of a sample of this compost that I took like maybe a half a teaspoon, mixed it with 10 milliliters of water, shook it up really, really good, really vigorously. And then you take a little tiny sample. So this is just a drop. All this is a drop, and this is just part of that drop that you're looking at. And so, okay, we're going to fade over into another shot that I took. I took that sample off later on in the evening. I set up another sample, and that's this one. So what we're looking at here is a couple larger pieces of soil particles. And the way you see this movement here with, watch, when it stops and you start to see movement, that's because water is moving in underneath the slide. Okay, so that first sample, we saw some pretty good things here. Now I'm putting this sample on, and right off the bat, I don't see much. I see a little bit of activity, but I'm not real pleased with it. So I'm going to move it around. We're going to cut over here in a second to another part of the video, because I let this video run for a while. So let's jump over to here where we're looking at, this is the same sample actually, or the same piece of the video from that sample. And I'm just searching around looking. And I'm starting to see things. This is one of those things where you just got to stop and look at it. So sometimes you don't see something in your sample or that part that you're looking at right there in the sample, right at first. But it takes a little time before you start seeing the little critters moving around. You can see some little bit bigger ones up there in the upper right. You can see a guy there below that, little bit below that particle of soil, that big brown particle there. And you see some others moving around. Okay, so this is that same sample, and I've moved the slide. I've actually adjusted the slide to look at a different part of the sample. And again, when you see this movement underneath, this flow-like, that's actually the water that's moving, because I'm either touching the slide with the very tip of the lens, right down on the, because you get it very, very close. Look, okay, you see all those guys. See a little bit over there to the left, but you can see some to the right. And then what you see over there on the upper right, actually I see some guys moving around up there too. But those are just little particles, maybe just like little pieces of mineral or something like that that's actually in that compost. Now you'll see a few things that look like they're just, actually what they are, they're pieces of things that are either on the slide or on the lens, and that's just debris. So it's not part of the sample itself. And they're not moving, they're just sitting there, and you kind of look at it at first, you go, ooh, what's that? And then you realize, oh, I got a speck of something on the slide, or I got something on the lens. But anyways, look at all these guys. You can see them. Kind of like in that very, very first sample that we looked at when this video first started. So I just wanted to share this. I thought it'd be pretty cool, and I wanted people to know that Keith does a really good job with the compost that he makes. This gives you an idea of how rich that compost is in bacteria, and this is what it's supposed to do. Now, in hot compost, when you're making compost, outside where you're heating it up. It's turning to 130, 140 degrees. You got to turn it so you can aerate it so it doesn't get too hot and cook the bacteria and fungi and all these other things that are happening in there. But that's what you want. You are growing bacteria that way. In the case of worms, the worms are doing all the work for you. But there's bacteria involved there too, because they're going to be in there, and then you're creating a richer environment for more bacteria. You're creating more carbon material, more food sources for bacteria, so they're going to grow. And of course, worms are going to have them in their digestive system, just like we have bacteria in our digestive system. Well, the worms do too. So that's part of what we're looking at. And, you know, these bacteria were either bacteria that like the other guy zipping around there at the bottom. I decided to pick out this clip just to kind of let it run for a bit, just so you could see that there's just a bunch of cool things. But anyways, that's it. So I think that gives you a pretty good idea of the kind of things you can see in a good, healthy compost pile. If you got any questions, let me know. If you want to find out more, I'll be happy to answer your questions and let you know about more things that are going on. You can check out the Facebook page, the Farm Food and Health Facebook page, or the Farm Food and Health YouTube channel, where you can find more content like this, and you can follow on what's going on with educational opportunities that are going on online or in person. And I'm not going to restrict that to just things that I'm doing, but you'll see some other stuff that people are doing that I also either have a part in or that I attend. And I think you'll be pretty amazed if you've not looked into some of these things, because we're going to dive a little bit deeper down into the biology. Oh, here we are again. So yeah, I think it's just a lot of fun, and I do this just to get a little better understanding myself, and I like to show these kinds of things in the classes so that people can actually see it live, and it's a lot of fun. So I hope you'll join us next time. Thanks for checking out the video.